Right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming in. I'm going to tell snakes not to bite you when you're in the field. So I think we'll kick off with snakes to begin with. And I'm going to introduce the problem of snakebite in India, but it's also relatable to Africa, it's also relatable to Latin America, across Southeast Asia, Middle Asia, or Middle East, and several parts of tropical countries. Sumant, however, will be talking about the solutions while I describe the problem. Sumant will tell about the solutions that we've been doing in India. And so I'm Gnaneswar. I work for this zoo in Chennai called as the Madras Crocodile Bank Trust in India. And we also started recently the IUCN task force for human-snake conflict. And fortunately, I'm co-chairing that right now. And I also work with Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in India to sort of understand the problem of snakebite. First and foremost thing, let me just get a little bit knowledge about the audience. What would you do if you're bitten by a snake? Some representation answers. What would you do?
Panic.
Panic? Good. Venomous snake. You're bitten on your hand by a venomous snake. What do you do? Quick answers. I have very less time. Sorry? Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a couple of plants at home that cure snake bites. So.
Snake plants to use snake bite. Anything else? Tying, cutting. So,
In the Facebook group.
Dutch. Quite there. I understand. Yeah. Okay. Any more answers? Anything that you do as first aids or anything like that? Okay, I'll go to that. I'll tell you that. So, if you see snakes in India, across several landscapes, are actually worshipped. They're mythological. That's why there are a lot of myths around these animals and a lot of misbeliefs. There is a lot of misunderstandings about these animals because they had a long-term history of negative and positive representation in mythology. Snakes are also protected in countries like India. Several species of snakes are highly protected. Some snakes, they're equally protected as tigers, but not as equally enforced as tigers. Then if you think about India, one of the first things that people from outside of India think about is snake charming. It's one of the first things you think, oh, all their people just walk around catching snakes. Not all, maybe some of us, but charming is a different thing together. The most important thing that people in general relate, or men in general relate to snakes, is when you're drunk, you dance like a snake. So that's one of the first things. It's a very social interpretation of snakes. I'll quickly glance through. These are some important snakes that we have in India. The spectacled cobra, the common krait, which is a nocturnal species, the Russell's viper, charismatic, but one of the most deadliest snakes that we have in India, and the very tiny saw-scaled viper, which is also found in Africa, subspecies, but found in Africa. And there are some other snakes that are also venomous. In India, we have about 60 venomous snakes, among which there are something called as 15 medically important snakes. Medically important is something that can have caused or is causing snakebite deaths in any country. So every country has its own list of venomous snakes against medically important snakes. So I'll jump right into the problem, or I'll struggle right into the problem. If you see, these are the most occurrent snakebite scenarios. If you see, these are not happening in a forested area, not in a reserve park. It's happening right in houses or outside houses or the places where people work on a regular basis. And this is when people are not aware. So snake bites are accidents. Snake bites are injuries that are mere accidents, and people are entirely unaware of the situation. And this is not ignorance of people. It's just that people have been used to that landscapes, and because a probability of a person being bitten by a snake is so low, people are used to it, people are normalized to it. This will not lead to people being bitten by snakes. That's not a real foot. We've used an artificial foot, so we didn't sacrifice anybody for that video. So I think the initial idea was to see where snake bites. I think this is very relevant to crocs also. Yeah. This is where human-reptile conflict usually occurs, is across the tropics. And tropics cover almost 70% of the landscapes or land cover on the planet, and snake bites are almost everywhere. Think about it. There are places where there are no elephants, there are snake bites. There are places where there are no tigers, there are snake bites. Anyways, I don't want to rant too much. This is just an estimation. Actually, this could be an overstatement also, is that all these animals combined, okay, hide this, all these can cause up to 2,000, can cause up to 2,500 deaths. Maybe a little less, not more than that. However, snakes, guesses from the audience? How many deaths? It's not a good thing to guess, but how many deaths do you think?
Per annum?
Yeah, venom.
1,000?
1,000?
100,000.
100,000, right there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
125,000 deaths globally every year. Yeah, I really wanted to ask this question to a lot of people. Do you feel this is significantly devastating number? Because even though the number is so large, there is still a problem that people don't acknowledge it. And this is just deaths reported by WHO through hospitals. Think about the deaths that happen outside hospitals, because that's where people don't have access to hospitals in majority of the tropical regions. So this is I pulled it off from WHO website. This is how everything stands. I think what would be interesting to see is you can look at rabies. You can look at I don't know if this is rabies right here, one of the biggest public health diseases. Then you have dengue and chikungunya, which is also really big, and then you have Kala Azar, which is very prevalent in Africa. And but if you see snakebite top, that's why it's called as a disease. It's a neglected tropical disease, a category A of neglected tropical disease by the World Health Organization. I wouldn't say this is beyond conflict. Disease and conflict are almost parallel. This is an old reference about how India is. India is a continent altogether. Of course, we are divided by political boundaries, but we are a pretty big geographic region, and we call ourselves a subcontinent because we are filled with our friendly neighbors: Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and that's the reason why the Indian subcontinent, rather India, is called the snakebite capital of the world. Not a title that we wanted, but we got it. This is just figures from India. This is about 58,000 deaths every year. Imagine 58,000 deaths every year reported at hospitals, or of course is an extrapolation data, but it is of course comes from register of deaths from several institutions that government has approved. And several researchers believe that this is just 1/3 of the problem, because two cases out of the 3 do not reach hospitals. So that's there. And if you see, it's not just deaths. Conflict is about interactions, negative interactions also. So there are about 1.2 million negative interactions every year. And we just assume it's 1.2 million. I think that's the low baseline of it. It could be even more. Depends on what you call negative interaction is. And I'm so sorry for the graphic image, but it doesn't stop with deaths. It goes beyond deaths. It goes to mobility. And I was told that across the globe, about 200 to 300,000 people suffer amputations or trauma, mental or physical, or crippleness, or go to a stage where they cannot work anymore. So it hits extremely. I think. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about snakes. People kill snakes. I've been into this people so much, but we have no data about how many snakes are killed. I was just referring to somebody in the morning that we have a post-mortem report for every elephant that dies in India, or every tiger that dies in India, but we don't have basic records of how many snakes are killed. So this is the problem across the globe. Like when you see a snake, you first kill it and then talk to it. So that's been the situation, unfortunately. And then irrespective of it being venomous, non-venomous, almost 85% of the snakes are non-venomous, but still they're killed first and asked, "Are you venomous?" "Oh, you're dead. Sorry, never mind." So that's been the problem, that conservation aspects is also being vulnerable, and also the human populations are at risk. And if you see, the majority of the victims outside of snakes are largest victims of this conflict, but outside of snakes, majority of the victims, the human victims, are usually the rural parts of who are living. Okay, it's nice. Mostly living at the rural parts of the countries, and as you see, they're farmers, herdsmen, they're herdspeople, children, open defecators. almost everybody who goes out to field are at risk of snakebite at one point of their life. And there are people who've been bitten 3-4 times, unfortunately. And also, it's a big problem. And if you see, these are the people, this is the population that constitutes almost up to 70% of populations in several growing economies. And it's a huge threat to the socio-economic values of a country. Imagine what those many farmers or those many herds people can do to that specific community if they were alive or if they were as efficient as they were before snake bites. And it's just not talked enough, mainly because of the fact that there is a lot of taboo around it. People believe that if you tell that you're bitten by a snake, there's a good chance that people who are surrounded by you are also afraid of you. So we don't want to talk about it. So it's a lot of myths. When you go into the field, we hear stories that, I mean, from Africa, I've heard stories which are obnoxious. I couldn't believe them. It all comes down to the problem of people believing in wrong practices, lack of awareness, lack of knowledge among communities, and people believe that, oh, I can go to traditional healers. Snake bites are like road accidents. Imagine I'm driving a bike, I fell in India, everybody falls in India, fell in India, broke my skull, and I'm bleeding. I wouldn't go for a faith healer, I wouldn't go for a plant-based medicine, I have to go to an emergency care. Snake bite is like road accident, but inside. So the only cure for snake bites is at hospitals with antivenom in them. Unfortunately, there has been not enough data to prove that there is traditional healing or herbal healing curing snake bites immediately. They can be therapeutic, which is after you're cured. So that's the biggest problem in India, or in several parts of the world, that they don't believe in right practices. They have lots of myths. There are lots of understandings about practices. So it delays or it often kills them. And one point that Simon often makes is that how when you go to the faith healers, of every 10 cases, maybe there will be 2 victims of venomous snake bites. The rest 8 are non-venomous snake bites. So irrespective of what you do at faith healers, they will still be saved. You don't even have to do anything. Person will still be saved because you can't die of a non-venomous snake bite. And that gives extra faith in the people to go to more faith healers because, oh no, I was saved. And facilities that are under-equipped. So just strengthening the medical facilities will not help in curing the disease problem. This gets even complex now. The problem of venom variation. Within the same species, the venom varies, resulting in bad quality of venom collection, bad quality of antivenom produced, and this is across the globe. And this only gets complex and complex as we dig deeper into this part of the science, the venomics. And it just blows your mind away. I think the biggest challenge that I find is working with policy, working with governments, because governments are the ones who have to recognize this. And unfortunately, there has been a blind eye with several national and state governments about snake bites, and we are trying to raise that. We are trying to meet communities. It's a multi-sectoral approach. It can't be just from the Ministry of Forests or Ministry of Health. You need to bring in people from panchayats, you need to bring in from tribal welfare, rural developments, finance, revenue, you name it, every department can be involved in treating snake bites. But the important knowledge that we get is from communities, because all this anecdotal information we will not understand if we don't talk to communities. And that's what I think I've been doing a lot is, or Sumant and I've been doing a lot is, we talk to the communities. We ask what's the problem from their end. Otherwise, we will never know how the problem prevails. I just did this yesterday to show how snake bite is one of the possible problems for the achieving sustainable development goals, but also the CBD framework, because it's one of the biggest conflicts, problem with One Health, problem with human public health, so it's everywhere. So, with problems so big, do we get millions of dollars for funding? No, maybe 3-4 zeros less in the millions. We might get a few $1,000s once in a while. It's because of the fact that we can't. I think I'll have this interaction when we have later on interactions. So we just wanted to promote coexistence, but sometimes we don't know what's coexistence, what is tolerance, what some people believe. Some people are afraid of snakes, but they're still tolerating snakes in their environment. So we don't have to promote coexistence there. We have to just promote the fact that you need to go to a hospital. So there's a lot of things that we are trying to understand. Do we actually need to promote coexistence, or is it tolerance that we're trying to develop? It's a big dilemma. So with problems so diverse, I think so are our measures, which Sumant will take over from here. And this is some people who funded for me to come all the way here to speak about it. And Yeah, if you have any questions, we can speak. Otherwise, we can have it in an interaction. Right?
Great.
Simon?
Yep, brilliant.